Okay, so today we're going to be talking about solving systems of equations by elimination. And we've talked about graphing and finding where the points intersect or the graphs intersect. We've also talked about substitution where we solve for a specific variable and substitute back in. So elimination is going to be pretty similar. Our essential question today is how can you get a variable to cancel out? So that's going to be our whole idea. If we're eliminating, we're canceling out one of the variables. So our first step is that we're going to put our equation into standard form. Remember, that's going to be the ax plus by equals c. So we're going to get our x term and our y term on the same side. Then for step 2, we're going to look to see if we have coefficients that are opposites, like 2 and negative 2, where we can cancel that term out. If we don't have one, then we can go ahead and multiply by negative 1 to get them to cancel out. After we cancel out one of the variables, then we're going to solve for the remaining variable after we add our equations together. And then once we have the value of that variable, we're going to plug in, substitute back into the original equation, and find the other variable. And then we're going to plug in and check for each one. So our first example that we're going to take a look at is going to be x plus y is equal to 5, and 3x minus y is equal to 7. So that's our system. And our first check is that they're in standard form. So since I have my x and my y on both sides, or on the same side for both ones, then they're both in standard form. So we don't have to do step 1 because it's already in standard form. Our next step is we're going to look at our variables. X and 3x are not opposites of each other. So now I'm going to move over to my y term, and positive y and minus y are opposites of each other. So since we already have a pair of opposites, we're going to add our two equations together and combine like terms. 3x plus x gives me 4x. Y minus y cancels my y's out. And 5 plus 7 gives me 12. And then I'm going to divide by 4 on both sides to finish solving for x and get that my x value is 3. 12 divided by 4 is 3. Now that I found my x value, I can choose either one of those equations to plug my x value into. I'm just going to choose that first equation because it's a little bit more simplified. So instead of x plus y equals 5, I'm going to plug in the 3 for x, and I'm going to solve for y. So I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides to get the y by itself, and my y is equal to 2. Third pair for our answer, our x value would be 3 and our y value would be 2. So that is where those two equations intersect. Our next set is going to be 4x plus y is equal to 7, and 4x minus 2y is equal to 2. So we're going to go ahead and solve. So they are both in standard form, our x and y term before. We're going to look to see if we have coefficients that are opposite. 4 and 4 on our x's are the exact same number, so those are not opposites. And y and negative 2y are, again, not opposites. So for this one, we're going to do that extra step. Since I have 4 and 4, I'm going to multiply one of my equations by negative 1. That way I can get them to cancel out. So when I rewrite this, I'm going to rewrite it as negative 4x minus y and negative 7, multiplying that negative 1 all the way through. And now that I have done that and look at my systems, now I can get my x terms to cancel out. So I'm going to do the same thing we did before and add our equations together. Negative 4 and positive 4 are opposite, so our x terms cancel. Negative y minus 2y gives me negative 3y. And 7 plus 2 gives me, oh, no, you know what, that's supposed to be a negative 2. Sorry about that. 7 plus negative 2 gives me negative 9. Then we're just going to divide by negative 3 on both sides and get our y value. So now that we have our y value, I can choose either one of those original equations to plug into. I'm just going to choose that first one again and say that it originally said 4x plus y equals 7. So I'm going to plug in that value for y that we found, which was 3. And then I'm just going to solve for x. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides first, bring down my 4x and my 4, and then I'm going to divide by 4 on both sides. Okay, so my ordered pair for this one would be our y value is 3 and our x value is 1. Okay, so if they don't already have one that cancels out, we can multiply by -1 and get them to cancel out. We're going to do one more example, and sorry about the lawn work going on at the same time. So the last one that we're going to do is y equals 7 minus 2x, and 4x plus y is equal to 5. So now that we have our equations written down, our first one this time is not in standard form, so I'm going to have to write that in standard form by moving that 2x to the other side. When I add 2x to both sides, I get 2x plus y is equal to 7. So now that they're both in standard form, I'm just going to come over here and rewrite that second one. And then we're going to go and take a look on our x's. We have a 2 and 4. Those are not opposites of each other. And then for our y's, they're both positive y. So since they're not opposites, but they have the same coefficient of 1, I can multiply by -1 again all the way through on one of them. And I would get the same equation for the first one because we're not doing anything to that one. And then on the second one, since I'm multiplying by -1 all the way through, I'd get -4x, -y, and -5. And then when I go ahead and add those together, 2 and -4 gives me -2x. Y plus -y cancels out. And 7 plus -5 gives me 2. And we're just going to divide by -2 on both sides and get x is equal to -1. And since we have our x value, we're just going to plug -1 into one of those equations. I'm just going to go to this original equation over here and say y equals 7 minus 2x. And now we know the value of x. So 7 minus 2 times -1, our value of x. 7. And then -2 times -1 gives me +2. So our y value should be 9. So we've got, as our ordered pair, we've got -1 for our x and 9 for our y. Okay, so again, we're just going to make sure it's in standard form first, and then we're going to see if they can cancel out. If they can't, then we can multiply by -1 all the way through. So just let me know if you guys have any questions. Make